Welcome, everyone, to the NewVision, OldWays podcast, a greatly ambitious journey of discovery where we can all learn to live better, mentally healthier, and more fulfilling lives. If you're just discovering us, feel free to go back and take the journey from the beginning. And if you're already a NewVision, OldWays fan, welcome back and enjoy season
7.
And now, here is your host, Tony Marinaccio.
You are listening to NewVision, OldWays, the podcast that explores timeless wisdom for the modern mind in a fun, relaxed, and most important, interactive way with you, the listener. I am your host, Tony Marinaccio, and let's get the episode started. Welcome, Visioneers, to another great episode of the NewVision, OldWays podcast. And if you listened to the last episode, that's number 67, if you're keeping score, you found out that it was our 2-year anniversary of NewVision, OldWays. And you know what? Here we go, on to year 3 with so much on the horizon. And I love the fact that this show has the ability to bring people together. And the Visioneer community has proven countless times that there is still many out there that want to live a better life and make their dreams come true and find the happiness that we can all have if we do the right things. And you know what? Most importantly, never give up. And no matter how crazy things can get, and it's pretty obvious how crazy things can get, giving up is not going to be an option for us. What we will do, though, is show the rest of the country and the world that it can be done. But it takes effort, it takes knowledge, it takes courage to not fall into the agenda media traps, the peer pressure traps, the guilt traps. Those things will tear your soul out. And there are many out there feeling rather soulless these days. And it is not difficult to see that, which brings us directly to what I will be discussing today. There is an unbelievable trend out there that seems pretty surreal, but it is very, very real, unfortunately. And it's a trend that seems to say that you don't need to provide solutions to problems. You just need to scream Nazi and fascist and racist, as we've talked about, as loud as you can, while apparently dancing and singing, and now throw in some killing, or at least trying to kill with the encouragement of others, almost like it's a game show. So how did we get to this disturbing place? How did so many fall into this demonic state of, if we disagree with you, we will kill you attitude? In this episode, I want to explore this craziness and help all of us understand how we can courageously reverse this and bring a solid moral attitude back. And there is no better time than right now to make sure we never give these deranged people a pathway to continue this insanity. So let's start episode 68, Assassination Attempts, Moral Collapse, and Comedy.
It's really frustrating. There's such violence in our country. I mean, he's the president of the United States, and towards each other, we shouldn't be violent.
It's just disappointing that our country's culture has got to this, that we revert to violence when we have differences.
I don't know that any of us know. There's obviously a lot of rhetoric being thrown around by both parties and both sides of the political scheme, but it does seem a little bit more one-sided than both.
They just seem to keep coming after him regardless of how much good he keeps doing for us. He's still going to push forward regardless of anything that happens and not let it affect his day-to-day, which shows just how strong of a person he is for our country.
There was a time in America, not even that long ago, when openly joking about assassinating a president, celebrating political violence, or fantasizing about the death of ideological opponents would have horrified the average citizen. Democrat or Republican, liberal or conservative, people understood there were lines civilized societies did not cross. And yes, there have been assassinations and assassination attempts before, including one that happened in my own pride and joy, Buffalo, New York. During the incredible Pan American Exposition of 1901, President McKinley was shot in Buffalo. Certainly not something we are proud of by any means, but it did happen. History cannot hide those terrible incidents. So fast forward to today, it is all amplified. You can hate policies, you can protest leaders, you can march in the streets, you can passionately disagree. But there remains and should remain a deeply understood moral boundary between opposition and dehumanization. And somewhere along the way, that line seems to have disappeared. Today, we live in a culture where people casually post online fantasies about presidents being killed. Influencers gain followers through rage and humiliation. And political figures are no longer treated as human beings, but as symbols to be destroyed. Even more disturbing is how ordinary people have become numb to it all. Violence has become content. Hatred has become identity. Outrage has become currency. And perhaps the most chilling part of all of this is not that extremists exist. Extremists have always existed throughout history. The truly terrifying reality is how mainstream this mentality has become. Assassination jokes trend online for laughs. Public figures casually imply political opponents deserve harm. Take and I do mean this sincerely, the awful human being, Maxine Waters out of California, deliberately telling people to surround and harm conservative opposition. Remember Maxine? No peace, no sleep. Entire crowds cheer rhetoric that 20 years ago would have ended careers instantly. We now consume outrage the way previous generations consumed entertainment. It is addictive. It is profitable. And boy, is it profitable. And of course, it is spiritually corrosive. And this is such an important point. The modern political machine thrives on emotional escalation because calm people are difficult to manipulate. Fearful people are easy to steer. Angry people are easy to monetize. Tribal people are easy to control. The media ecosystem understands this perfectly. Social media algorithms understand this perfectly. Political operatives understand this perfectly. The goal is no longer to persuade you. The goal is to emotionally possess you, to make you hate so deeply that you stop seeing other Americans as fellow citizens and begin seeing them as enemies, standing in the way of some salvation. Create the chaos, blame the other side, gain followers, and of course, don't provide solutions. Just yell, well, you know, the same old, and when pressed for answers, just scream into a megaphone, blow your ridiculous whistle, and feel like you just won a battle. I mean, it's an imaginary battle, but go ahead, taste the sweet imaginary victory that you have. It's all you've got. And history warns us where this road leads. Every society that normalized political hatred eventually paid for it in blood. Ancient Rome descended into cycles of vengeance and political violence once citizens stopped viewing opponents as countrymen. Revolutionary France devolved into public executions after ideological purity replaced basic humanity. The Soviet Union, Maoist China, and countless authoritarian regimes all began with moral certainty, with a belief that destroying the bad people was necessary to save society. The language always begins the same way. See if you recognize any of this. They are dangerous. They are evil. They are destroying the country. Once enough people accept those premises, violence stops feeling immoral and starts feeling justified. And this is where modern America stands dangerously close to the edge, because now political identity has become a substitute religion for millions of people. It gives purpose, it gives belonging, it gives you the false idea that you should hate your perceived enemies and somehow feel good about it. And when politics becomes religion, disagreement becomes heresy. That is why some people now celebrate cruelty if it is directed at the correct target. But think about who decided that. It is why individuals can scream love, tolerance, and peace while simultaneously wishing death upon political opponents online. It is not really about compassion anymore. It is about power, emotional tribalism, and moral self-righteousness. One of the greatest tragedies of our era is that many people no longer think independently. They inherit outrage the way previous generations inherited family traditions. Entire movements are fueled by slogans repeated so often that few participants can even fully explain what they believe or why they believe it. Protests emerge overnight with identical signs, identical phrases, identical emotional scripts, yet ask many of these participants to articulate detailed reasoning, and often there is very little beneath the surface of emotion. This is not because people are stupid per se, it is because modern propaganda no longer works through careful persuasion. It works through emotional immersion, through repetition, through social pressure, through fear of exclusion, through constant exposure to outrage until emotional reaction overrides thoughtful analysis. And yes, wealthy political activists and organizations across the political spectrum absolutely fund causes, movements, demonstrations, and influence campaigns designed to shape public perception. Case in point, and the leader of this, George Soros and his son, the absolute anti-American family. That is not a conspiracy theory. It is openly documented reality in modern politics. Billionaires, corporations, NGOs, activist networks, and ideological institutions all attempt to influence society. But the deeper issue is not merely who funds what. The deeper issue is why so many citizens are psychologically vulnerable to manipulation in the first place. Why are so many people desperate for outrage? Why are so many searching for meaning in political tribalism? Why do people increasingly feel emotionally rewarded by hatred? The reason, the actual reason, is because modern society has become spiritually hollow.
Do you think that when people use religion in like a political argument such as abortion or transgender, should it be allowed because church and state are separate?
It's a good question. So allowed, I mean, yes, of course it should be allowed. Anyone can say whatever they want. The problem is this, is that at some point you're going to have a religious moral order that sets in that people appeal to. So the question is, what religion? I'm happy to get into the history of separation of church and state. Kind of boring if you want.
Yeah,
but
I already know it.
I think we can agree, though, that we should never have separation of morality and state.
We have lost the foundations that once restrained human darkness. Faith weakened, families fractured, communities dissolved, tradition became something to mock, discipline became oppression, masculinity became toxic, patriotism became dangerous, moral standards became judgment, and in the vacuum left behind, people turned toward identity politics, ideological extremism, online tribalism, and emotional addiction. Human beings are wired to worship something. If they no longer worship God, truth, virtue, family, or higher principles, they often end up worshiping politics, movements, personalities, or collective outrage. And once outrage becomes identity, violence becomes easier to rationalize. This is why political assassination jokes are not harmless comedy. It's a deliberate attempt at normalizing it. You know, the ha ha ha, the president almost died. Better luck on the next attempt, right? I wonder how these same idiots would feel if their grandma was killed because of her political beliefs. There are clear symptoms of civilizational decay. They reveal a society slowly losing its moral center. A healthy civilization does not fantasize about killing leaders. A healthy civilization debates ideas. A healthy civilization values restraint even in anger. The moment citizens begin casually discussing violence against opponents, the social fabric itself begins to tear apart. What makes this moment especially dangerous is the speed at which technology amplifies hatred. Previous generations could cool down after an argument. Today, outrage follows people 24 hours a day. Algorithms constantly feed emotional escalation because anger drives clicks, and clicks generate profit. The most extreme voices rise to the top because moderation is boring and fury is addictive. Young people grow up marinating in political hostility before their identities are even fully formed. Many no longer know how to disagree without hatred because hatred is all they have seen modeled online. Take the incident at Cornell University just days ago. Students, pro-Palestine protesters, created the chaos, purposely standing and moving in front and behind the university president's car. And what is the logical response by the students? Claim someone was hit, hurt, and now demanding his resignation, all because they were not getting the support they thought they deserved. It was clearly a setup, and one of the most obvious kind. And remember, this is in Ithaca, New York, not Israel. Intimidation is all they have. The university president should be only concerned about providing the best education the university can, not concerned about an issue he cannot do anything about. It's all an illusion to distract, to call attention to an issue that right now is over in the eyes of Americans. And meanwhile, loneliness, anxiety, depression, lack of purpose, and alienation continue exploding across society. This is not coincidence. Human beings were not designed to live in a perpetual state of digital warfare. We were not meant to define ourselves entirely through politics. We were not meant to see neighbors as enemies. Yet this is exactly what the modern outrage machine demands. And if you don't like my politics or my beliefs, don't have an intelligent conversation with me, God forbid. Just friend me on Facebook. Ooh, how terrible. Give me the cold shoulder in the produce section, or worse, hate me just 'cause.
And now, Visioneers, let's take a quick break to let you know how you can support the show. By clicking on the Patreon donate link in the show notes, or by typing in patreon.com/newvisionoldways, or at the newvisionoldways.com website, you can show your support by donating directly to the New Vision Old Ways podcast. These episodes take time and money to produce, and by donating what you are able to, it will allow us to grow the show and give you the best content that we can. Of course, you can cancel at any time. Remember, click on the Patreon donate link in the show notes, or by typing in patreon.com/newvisionoldways, or at the newvisionoldways.com website. Hint, you are able to donate a one-time lump sum. Then, cancel right after. Options are always a good thing. Thank you, and now, back to the show.
I have discussed how we got to this point. I have laid out the terrible effects on individuals, communities, and countries. Now the question is, how do we reverse this trend? First, we must recover the ability to see humanity even in people we disagree with. This does not mean surrendering convictions. It means refusing dehumanization. It means recognizing that disagreement is not justification for hatred or violence. Mature civilizations require emotional restraint. Without it, democracy eventually collapses into chaos. And the foolish people protesting and yelling those worn-out words will never convince myself or most other people that we are Nazis, fascists, and racists, because we are in fact not those things. We can fight back against that, and fight back we will. It's an illusion, though, to cover up the fact that if you have no solutions, you just accuse, and that is like the boy who cried wolf. Keep yelling it. It just makes you look more and more foolish. It really does. And second, we must reclaim independent thought. I cannot stress that enough. Stop outsourcing your worldview entirely to influencers, and I use that word loosely, activists, agenda media, or algorithm-driven feeds. Ask questions. Challenge narratives, including the ones you emotionally prefer. Read deeply. Think critically. Refuse emotional manipulation from any side. The moment someone tries to make you hate before you think, alarm bells should go off in your mind. And these days, those alarm bells should be going off quite often. And third, we must rebuild meaning outside of politics. Strong families, strong communities, faith, discipline, purpose, creativity, service, friendship, personal responsibilities. These are things that stabilize civilizations. Politics was never meant to become the center of human existence. Once it does, society begins eating itself alive. In episode 48, I posted an amazing interview I did with Ray Manzarek of The Doors many years ago, where he said, "We are all losers, man," or "We are all winners." And I believe in my heart, we can still be all winners if we can get back to those basics of loving ourselves and each other. But it starts with a moral code that we can all agree upon, which means we all reject the manufactured manipulation that rules so many now. And lastly, for now, we must recover moral courage. The courage to say, no, I will not celebrate violence. I will not fantasize about killing people I disagree with. I will not become emotionally addicted to hatred. Because civilizations survive only when enough ordinary people choose restraint over rage. Because people like Jimmy Kimmel should find that moral courage and stop acting like killing the president is just one big joke. History teaches us something sobering. Civilizations rarely collapse all at once. They collapse morally first. They decay spiritually. They lose the ability to distinguish disagreement from evil. They lose the ability to speak without hatred. They lose the ability to coexist. And eventually, the violence people once joked about becomes very, very real. That is the crossroads America now faces. The question is whether enough people still remember what it means to be civilized. Because if we cannot relearn that lesson soon, the future will not belong to reason, wisdom, or liberty. It'll belong to rage. And rage, once unleashed long enough, eventually consumes everything. And maybe this is the moment where we, as ordinary Americans, finally have to rediscover something that previous generations understood very clearly. Freedom does not survive without responsibility. A society cannot endlessly glorify hatred, reward hysteria, excuse violence rhetoric, and then act shocked when unstable people eventually take those ideas seriously. Politicians, media personalities, celebrities, influencers, and activist organizations that continuously inflame division for clicks, money, power, or political gain should absolutely be held morally accountable for the poison they help spread into society. Not because disagreement should be silenced by any means. Disagreement is essential in a free country. But because there is a massive difference between passionate debate and the constant dehumanization of fellow Americans. When public figures repeatedly imply that political opponents are evil, dangerous, subhuman, or deserving of destruction, they help create the emotional environment where violence becomes thinkable to broken minds looking for justification. And we as citizens have a responsibility too. We cannot keep rewarding outrage merchants with our attention, our clicks, our votes, and our blind loyalty while pretending we are innocent bystanders in this cultural collapse. At some point, decent people must stand up and say enough. Enough celebrating hatred as intelligence, enough confusing cruelty with virtue, enough pretending assassination fantasies are comedy, enough treating rage as entertainment. Evil ideas only flourish when good people become passive, intimidated, or too exhausted to resist them. History proves this over and over again. Civilizations are not usually destroyed by a single dictator or a single movement alone. They decay when ordinary people slowly accept behavior that once would have disgusted them. And that is why this moment matters so much. Because America is not simply fighting over politics anymore. We are fighting over whether morality, restraint, civilization, and basic human decency will still have a place in our culture moving forward. And the future will belong to whichever side is willing to defend not only freedom, but responsibility, truth, and moral courage alongside of it. And if enough ordinary people rediscover those principles, then maybe, just maybe, we could pull this country back from the edge before rage becomes the only language left that people know how to speak. I think it's very important to think this thing through just a bit further. If you need to manufacture rage, encourage violence, let violent criminals out of incarceration, and yearn for open borders, removing faith, all the while accusing the other side of being those pesky Nazis, fascists, and racist, and of course providing no solutions, as I said before, and encouraging the assassination of a president, then please explain to me how this helps civilization move forward. And I'm listening. Go ahead and explain. Just what I thought. There is no explanation. And let's dig a little deeper on the manipulation front. Explain to me how, when an officer shoots an actual criminal, it's somehow the officer's fault only, removing any blame from the perpetrator. But when a gang member shoots another gang member or an innocent victim, it's somehow the gun's fault, the gun manufacturer, or the NRA. Again, removing any responsibility of the reckless murderer. And even worse, an insane judge apologizing to a wannabe assassin. Does any of this make sense at all? And maybe that is the real battle of our time. Not Republican versus Democrat, not left versus right, not race versus race, or culture, class versus class. Maybe the real battle is whether we are still capable of being civilized human beings in an age that profits from our hatred. Maybe the real war is spiritual. A war for the soul of a nation that is slowly forgetting how to speak to itself without screaming, forgetting how to disagree without destruction, forgetting how to value wisdom over emotional spectacle. Because when a society begins laughing at assassination attempts, when celebrities joke about violence, when public figures casually encourage intimidation, when outrage becomes entertainment and cruelty becomes a social currency, something far deeper is breaking beneath the surface. And that is not politics anymore. That is moral erosion. That is a civilization beginning to lose its identity. And the frightening thing is that collapse rarely feels dramatic while you are living through it. Rome did not wake up one morning and announce its downfall. Civilizations decay slowly. Standards weaken slowly. Morality fades slowly. People adapt to behavior that once horrified them until eventually nobody remembers what normal even looked like anymore. But here's the good news. Decline is not inevitable. There's actually an interesting tension happening right now that this show touches on often. The more technologically advanced society becomes, the more people seem spiritually restless. We have infinite information, yet rising confusion. Constant connection, yet excessive loneliness. Entertainment everywhere, yet declining satisfaction and meaning. That contradiction alone causes many people to reconsider whether humans need something transcendent beyond consumption, politics, algorithms, and material success. History also shows us that civilizations can recover when enough ordinary people rediscover courage, discipline, faith, truth, family, and personal responsibility. Not through violence, not through revenge, but through moral strength. Through refusing to become the very thing we claim to oppose. And maybe that starts with something simple. Refusing to dehumanize people we disagree with. Refusing to celebrate political violence. Refusing to reward outrage addicts with our attention. Refusing to let algorithms, media personalities, or activists emotionally hijack our minds every waking hour of the day. Because once you reclaim your mind, you reclaim your freedom. And we talked about that many times before on this podcast. And that is really what NewVision, OldWays has always been about. Seeing clearly in a world designed to confuse you. Standing firm while society loses balance. Building strength while culture promotes weakness. Choosing wisdom while others choose hysteria. The future of this country will not ultimately be decided by politicians alone. It will be decided by millions of ordinary people making daily choices about who they become, whether they choose rage or restraint, whether they choose hatred or humanity, whether they choose manipulation or truth. So no, I will not accept a world where assassination fantasies become comedy. I will not accept a culture where hatred becomes virtue. And I will not surrender the idea that America and humanity itself can still recover its moral center. And recovery begins with courage. The courage to think, the courage to question, the courage to reject manipulation, and most importantly, the courage to remain human in a world increasingly rewarding people for becoming monsters. And on that note, Visionaries, I want to thank you for joining me for episode number 68 of the NewVision, OldWays podcast. So please stay strong, stay aware, and never surrender your mind.
So, what did you think of this episode or any of the episodes? We would love to find out. And here is where to get a hold of the show and let us know. These are in the show notes, but as always, here they are. There is a Patreon support link in the show notes and on the NewVisionOldWays.com website that you can click on that will allow you to donate to the show and show your support. By donating what you can, it will allow us to book guests and cover costs. Anything will help. Cancel anytime. You can also message the show from each episode on your various platforms. Just look for the Send Us a Text Message link. If that doesn't work for you, you can email us at newvisionoldways@gmail.com. You can find us on what was Twitter, now X, at NewVisionOldWay, no S on that one. Check the New Vision Old Ways YouTube channel. Type in New Vision, one word, Old Ways, one word, channel, and please subscribe. It is free and will show support for the show. It really means a lot and will help grow the show on YouTube. Find us on Facebook, New Vision Old Ways, podcast you should easily find us. And as a reminder, these are still growing platforms for us and expanding all the time, so we need your help to get the flow going with the community. And last but not least, if you can do me a huge favor and subscribe to us, like us, follow us, leave a review on whatever platform you found us on. That would be so appreciated. That will also help secure guests that we will be booking in the future. So, here we are, Season 7. We have a lot to cover, so thank you for listening. We can't wait to get your input, and I also can't wait until we get together for the next episode of New Vision Old Ways. Until then, stay true to yourself, stay informed, and stay empowered.
But the most important thing is...
This episode and all the episodes of New Vision Old Ways podcast have been written, engineered, and produced by Tony Marinaccio and TKM Productions.